Welcome back into Buckeye Beat. I'm Noah Weiskopf, joined here again by the great Tyler Danberg. All right, so Tyler, the Buckeyes now have a game under their belt, taking on Western Michigan on Saturday at 7:30 in the Shoe. Ohio State beat Akron 52-6 Saturday at the Shoe. Even though it was just one game, though, plenty to talk about, of course, and nothing bigger than freshman wideout Jeremiah Smith. In his first ever game as a Buckeye, Smith hauled in 2 touchdowns, both of which came in the first half. The 2-touchdown performance was the first time in 28 years that an Ohio State freshman notched a pair of touchdowns since Michael Wiley did so in 1996. The first, an over-the-shoulder catch from Will Howard, and the second over the middle with an Akron defender draped all over his back. But it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows for Smith. On the first drive of the game, he dropped a wide-open screen pass and then followed that up with a pre-snap penalty. But Tyler, the 18-year-old, to have that maturity, stick with it, and come back shortly thereafter, it really does speak volumes to who he is as a player at just such a young age.
It really does, and it shows that short-term memory. Ryan Day last week spoke about the maturity that Jeremiah Smith brings. For him to have that short-term memory in a college debut and pull in 2 touchdowns and 90-plus yards is incredible.
But outside of Smith, I mean, the Buckeyes offense seemed to struggle a bit in the first half outside of some expectations. Will Howard couldn't seem to find much consistency there early, and the new-look rushing attack with Quinshon, Travion Henderson, the duo combined for just 14 carries for 69 yards in the first half. And while those numbers aren't necessarily bad, you expect a little bit more going against that competition, and the Buckeyes had hoped for a bit more production than that early on.
And losing Donovan Jackson, the 2-time preseason All-American left guard, stalled the run game a little bit. And Chip Kelly this week took accountability. He showed frustration for his play calling. But again, it is the start of a new season, a new system and environment for him.
And not to mention Donovan Jackson, but the Buckeyes were also without Cody Simon defensively. Their Mike linebacker, Block O recipient, who was not playing. We'll see if he'll be able to get back out there this weekend. But defensively, super solid showing. In 2023, the Buckeyes had a top-tier defense, caused a ton of pressure, but just couldn't seem to get home, couldn't seem to get the sacks, the numbers. If Saturday was any indication of how 2024 will look, man, that won't be an issue for the Buckeyes at all. Ohio State's defense tallied 10 tackles for a loss and 5 sacks. On top of that, they scored twice, which always helps a bunch, once on a deflected pick 6, another forced fumble from Caden Curry there, returned for a touchdown. But Tyler, this defense seems like it's picking up right where they left off and then some.
Gabe Powers getting in on the pick 6 party, and Lathan Ransom with a fumble return as well. The Buckeyes held Akron to 177 total yards against a team that was 13th last year in pass frequency. Akron likes to spread the ball around, but the Buckeyes got 2 picks off them nonetheless, with not just Powers, but Denzel Burke as well.
Yeah, and in the end, dominant showing for Ohio State. They ended up beating Akron by a good margin there, not covering the spread, but still a big margin. Now looking ahead, the Buckeyes will continue their MAC competition as they welcome the Western Michigan Broncos to Columbus this Saturday at 7:30, but can't overlook this team. I know they're in the MAC, but they gave Wisconsin a run for their money in Madison last weekend. The Badgers escaped with a 28-14 win, but Western Michigan, their defense looked the part, and new Broncos defensive coordinator Scott Powers has implemented a new defensive scheme for them, and what used to be a 3-3 stack in prior years, Western Michigan's new defense appeared to be a bit more standard. And Ryan Day told us Tuesday that it's probably good that they gave Wisconsin a run for their money, because it looks good on these Buckeye players that are going to scout them, seeing that they gave a Big Ten team a really good game.
Well, it's a defense that's enabled to get more turnovers. You go back to when Power was at Louisiana Tech in 2022, Louisiana Tech was top 25 of the country in defensive turnovers gained, and they were 12th in defensive touchdowns as well. Keep an eye on the Cleveland, Ohio native, Garfield Heights High School product, Donald Willis, 10 tackles and 2 pass breakups against Wisconsin. Former Minnesota Golden Gopher, actually played in 2021 in Minneapolis against Ohio State and got a tackle. He's one of those key instigators of havoc in the middle for Western Michigan.
And I mean, Will Howard said Tuesday that their defense isn't going to try and fool you. They're not going to get too fancy. They're going to play their own game. It's pretty straightforward, but based on the tape, they're pretty good at what they do. They're pretty good at that type of defense. And Chip Kelly went on and emphasized that they can watch film all day. But at the end of the day, they have to go out there, play an 11-on-11 game, win the game, all 4 quarters, dominate. And Ryan Day told us, like every week, they just need to worry about themselves. They can't get too caught up in the competition, no matter what conference they're in, Power 4, not Power 4. They have to just worry about themselves and play their own game.
No, I love that message. The staff harps on preparation. That is the most important thing in focusing on yourself. You can help see that before the play happens. But the game is the game, and Western Michigan proved it last week that they could hang with the Big Ten. First time since 2000 that Western Michigan did not allow over 1+ play of 20+ yards against a Big Ten opponent.
And that'll be another question this week is Ohio State, outside of a couple of plays, didn't have those chunk plays, especially in the run game. I know the offensive line, the running backs are looking to continue to get downfield, and get those big explosive plays. So we'll see if Western Michigan's defense is going to hold up here or Ohio State's offense is going to break through. But Tyler, it's that time of the week. Let's get into our game picks. Around the country in week 2, there's some pretty big games, but of course one that stands out. The first game we'll look at is the biggest one. Number 3 Texas. The Longhorns travel to Ann Arbor to take on number 10 Michigan. And, Michigan didn't have the best week last week against Fresno, but I know Buckeye fans are really pulling hard for Texas and Ohio State former quarterback Quinn Ewers. And after seeing Michigan struggle, I really think Texas is going to come out and dominate this game and get a big win on the road in the Big House. What do you think?
Well, partner, Buckeye fans were on Quinn Ewers' side, especially when he called Michigan that team up north at Big 12 Media Days this summer. Look out for the law firm of Silas Bolden and Matthew Golden as wide receivers. They're going to be weapons for Ewers on the outsides, testing Will Johnson and the crew.
And next up, we've got the Baylor Bears heading to Utah to take on the number 11 Utes. And to me, experience will be the difference here. Not only is Utah on their home field, the quarterback Cam Rising has certainly been around college football for a little bit. And I just like Utah to get this done overall with their experience and their level of talent.
The Utes are one of the favorites this year in their first year to win the Big 12, and Cam Rising a main reason as to why. You got to forget, once upon a time, he was a redshirt quarterback at Texas, so he knows what it takes to win in the Big 12. I think the Utes are going to get it done.
And then Iowa State will head to number 21 ranked Iowa. Now, Iowa State has returning more offensive production than any other team in the country this year, and it feels like if you can score against this Iowa team, you're going to be in a pretty good chance to win the game. But will Iowa State be able to outplay the Hawkeye defense? Will the offense be able to outplay them? I don't think so. Give me Iowa at home.
I think Rocco Brecht is going to have a big game for Iowa State. The Cyclones have a lot of weapons. I think they can really test that secondary of Iowa, which is great. I believe by the end of the day, the Cyclones are going to be holding up the Cy-Hawk Trophy.
I think so. No, I don't think so, but it'll be certainly a good game, and it feels like whoever is going to be able to win that offense versus defense battle with Iowa's defense at home will win that game. But I want to look at number 19, Kansas. They'll be heading to Champaign to take on the Big Ten Fighting Illini. The matchup to watch here will definitely be Jalen Daniels, the quarterback, and the impressive Kansas offense versus a really pretty strong Illinois defense. And I think that Kansas's talent will ultimately lead them to a victory, but I think this is going to be the closest game of the week.
This is Kansas's first trip to Champaign since 1968 when they won 47-7. I think they're going to repeat that. Now, it won't be as wide of a margin, but not only is Kansas's offense explosive, but they've been quite the improved defense. Kobe Bryant, the engineer of that defensive turnaround. Look for Kansas to win big.
All right, and certainly last but not least, the Western Michigan Broncos, as we've talked about in the episode, are up against the number 2 Buckeyes. And I think that Ohio State dominates this game from top to bottom. The key here for the Buckeyes is to get off to a fast start. They need to find consistency in a rhythm early on. Will Howard needs to be able to get into that rhythm, needs to be able to spread the ball to his weapons like we've talked about before on this show. You just have to be the facilitator. You need to get the ball to Emeka Egbuka, see if Jeremiah Smith can continue on what he's already done in that first game, his record-setting game. But, Tyler, what do you think on this game?
Well, Mecca is the yards after catch, the yak guy. Jeremiah Smith, the deep threat. Ohio State is a big play offense, trying to return to form against a strong defense in Western Michigan. Now, we talked about the Broncos not allowing a play of over 20-plus yards against a Big Ten opponent for the first time since 2000. Well, Ohio State had only 3 plays of 20-plus yards against the strong Akron Zips defense. I think the Buckeyes are going to need to activate the ground game, at least maybe 3 rushing touchdowns you're going to see. I think Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson have the game that the fan base is really expecting to see.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, that'll do it for another episode of Buckeye Beat. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you right back here next week. For Tyler Danberg, I'm Noah Weiskopf. Enjoy the game this weekend.